From our home and native land, Toronto's newest pulp culture podcast, covering your favorite comics, collectibles, media, nerderific origin stories, and more. Hosted by your northern neighbor, Jowy Pangolinin. Here it is, nerdos and nerdettes, Comic Sync!
Hey guys, this is Cyrille from Comics Inc. with the crew,
Geoff,
Shane,
and today we are going to be talking about our favorite scruffy nerf herder, Solo. So Jowy hasn't seen Solo yet, so we're kind of saving her from the spoilers, but a big shout out to Anthony, who was sick and was going to contribute and was going to co-produce this podcast. So Anthony, we hope you feel better.
Yeah.
please.
The latest news, according to Global News, they released an article saying that Solo is the first Star Wars film to flop. It was lukewarm in the first weekend, but it plummeted the week after, and it dropped 77.2%. It just broke even, right? Right, Shane? It's called you Anthony.
Yeah.
I had Anthony.
Hey, we don't all look alike. No.
I had Anthony on the brain.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks in and it's only just breaking even. Like that's a pretty scary thought in the world of Disney and Star Wars, for that matter, because they're not used to these sort of things.
Well, I mean, if you compare it to Rogue One made $523.8 million, whereas this one made $115 million. So it's
like the domestic numbers, right?
It's not doing great. So I guess one of the things we're going to talk about is, why did it do so bad in the box office? Do you guys think that we run, did the Kessel run too fast? I said Kessel, not Castle.
Very good. Before you did not say that correctly, but this time you did. Very nice.
That's right. She's getting there.
So do you guys think it's too much Star Wars too soon? Like, are we getting like a fatigue from it, or what do you guys think?
I feel, it's like a combination of both. I feel like, first of all, if maybe they pushed back like the release until, let's say, December, that would have kind of been a little bit better, right?
To give it enough window between...
Yeah, so that people could breathe after, The Last Jedi stuff,
yeah,
right?
There's a lot of circumstances that contributed to this box office, being so close to Deadpool, being so close to Infinity War, being so close to the tire fire that was The Last Jedi.
If you guys haven't heard, if you guys haven't heard our podcast, The Worst, for The Last Jedi, we suggest you guys go do it now.
Yeah, it's just I feel like this was already an uphill climb no matter when this movie came out, because of it being Han Solo and he's such a beloved character, and whether people didn't really think that you needed to flesh that out, because the mystery and legend of Solo was better not being told, or just being in the eyes of the beholder, really. So when they even announced this being a thing, it's like, oh, why can't we get something like a Boba Fett movie where we know nothing of Boba Fett other than his uselessness in the movies? Like, he's the world's most famous henchman, pretty much, and he did a whole lot of nothing as opposed to the Carbonite. So, like, Boba Fett makes sense, or even doing... an Obi-Wan movie that kind of fills in the gaps, but Solo, it's like, oh, really?
Yeah, Geoff.
It was a lot.
Geoff is like really hardcore petitioning for his cousin Ewan McGregor to like step into Obi-Wan again. He wants it so bad.
No, definitely. Especially, not to get ahead of like what we're talking about, but like even like the end of it, definitely sets up like a good moment for Obi-Wan.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
So you mentioned mystery. Do you think that when I was looking at the trailers, I didn't see that much of like the storyline being told? Do you think that that's also maybe why the box office, like, it didn't perform well in the box office?
I don't know, because we're at the point in, I guess, pop culture where trailers either do one of two things. They either give you way too damn much, or they give you nothing at all. And I think they wanted to go with the route with they didn't want to give you much because they wanted to leave. I guess they didn't want to spoil the movie in the direction they were going to, on top of the fact that 80% of the movie had to be reshot. So who really knows what
the original thing looked like?
Yeah, what the original movie looked like when they released the trailers, if it was even going to be the same sort of storyline. We have no idea. So, like, I can understand that they maybe really didn't want to reshoot the trailers because of all the production issues, but I prefer that as opposed to something like the Batman v Superman that gave you all the best scenes in the trailer. Like,
well, yeah, that's how I felt with Suicide Squad too. I was just like, oh, it looks like a super cool, fun movie, and then you go in to watch it and you're like, no, this is garbage. This is trash. This is Hot Topic trying to make a movie. It's garbage. It's awful. Like, Geoff, what did you think about the trailer?
Suicide Squad?
That's a different podcast.
No.
That's a
No,
different
don't
podcast.
even bother with that. It's not even worth it.
It's not getting more of my life anyway.
Yeah, honestly. No, but what did I think about the trailer? I mean, it was all right. I mean, I prefer that than like what they're doing with, I guess, Jurassic World right now.
God, I'm so upset about the Jurassic World.
Yeah, I've basically seen the whole movie at this point. I know the end shot. I know how people are going to die.
So mad that because I saw it during Solo, and I'm like, wait, I didn't know all these scenes were in the movie. I was so upset.
Yeah, now they're in a park with a lion.
I'm legit angry.
Yeah, like it started off fine with that because like you just see like the first like 45 minutes, right?
I thought that was it, and
then
I didn't know there was
trailer 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And...
See, this is why you don't screw up by showing too much in trailers because now I'm upset.
So I guess we know who's going to be on the negative side when we do our Jurassic World podcast.
I'm very excited for that movie.
No, I'm
though.
still very excited for that movie.
It doesn't matter. Tell me whatever you want. I don't care.
So in terms of, like, I guess let's talk about the things we did like, because I mean it did have a little bit of promise. There was, the nostalgic references. For me, I thought it was a little bit of a pandering moment when they're like, oh, what's your name? Oh, I don't have a last name. We'll call you Solo. It's just like, really, did we need the 2-minute explanation as to why your name is Han Solo? Is that necessary?
I mean, there was really no way to go about that, though.
But
it just kind of
I mean,
get in.
Once you've established the fact that he was like an orphan or sort of street urchin sort of guy that was sold into slavery, he would not have known his real last name. So
but it just
you had to give it to him somehow. And the only other way was for him to, when he enlisted in the Imperial Army, for his call sign to be Solo. That was the only other option you had. So it was one of the two.
I think for me it was kind of so cheesy, like when I was watching Dark Knight, and they're like, "Oh, you should use your middle name, Robin," and then the whole theater just goes like,
"Oh my God,
shit.
Robin, he's Robin!"
Yeah,
right?
and it's just like, no, he's not. You idiots! This is just a pandering like fan service and like terribly done. So,
but in truth, there was a lot of fan service in this film, but I think it was to make up for the lack of fan service in the last movie. Because Star Wars generally does have fan service. Like, they live on that. That's one of the sort of motifs that you come to know with Star Wars, that it's like, yeah, it's like that tongue-in-cheek, gotcha, sort of every time in every movie that... Like, you have those moments, and it does come later on in the film, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. But, that's his name. Like, there's no other way to go. I gotta go about it.
That's his name. Don't wear it out.
Yeah, but the action sequence leading up to all that was great, and even trying and establishing his relationship with Kira.
Mm-hmm. So what did you guys think of the first, the opening 10 minutes of the movie? I feel like it's very polarized. It's either you really like it or you really hate it, because I have a friend who's a diehard Star Wars fan, and she said that she hated the first 10 minutes.
Did she really?
Yeah, Jasmine hated the first 10 minutes.
Really? But what about it did she hate?
She didn't go into much explanation, but she said that she just really hated it.
You know what it kind of felt, well, for me in terms of tone? The very, I guess, opening scene of Star Trek, when they introduced James Kirk and you had Sabotage playing and he was joyriding in the car, like, you're trying to establish him being a free spirit. That's what I felt like with Solo, where they're trying to go for the same sort of feel, and it's like, oh, he's already up to some sort of mischievousness, like, and he's running away from somebody that he just robbed. Like, that's so, like, that was kind of like tongue in cheek cheesy. But after he got into the sewers and he's talking to Kira and he's like it showing that he does ultimately have a heart of gold and all of that, I'm like, that was fine. And I wish they kind of fleshed out Linda Hunt's character, the leader of that slave little group, because outside of the 2 minutes of screen time she might have gotten, you didn't really get much in that, and they didn't touch upon it later on. So like that was the beginning of many characters in that movie that didn't have enough of a backstory for you to get completely invested in.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get there. So Geoff, what did you think of the opening 10 minutes?
No, I mean, I liked it. It was
It was cool?
Yeah. I really don't have any more to add to that. Continue.
So this is the first movie where we really explore the Kessel Run. So what did you guys think of that finally? Kind of, really like having its spotlight moment.
I personally liked, I guess, the lead up and even everything setting up the Kessel Run, with them having to go to Kessel to steal all the rocket fuel or whatever it was, the alien rocket fuel it really is, and then the Star Destroyer kind of blocking their path, and you're like, all right, got to find an alternate route. Like it seemed organic in the way that they did it in the film, and even the visual effects and having to use L3's memory banks in the ship's guidance system to help them get through that. Like that was all really cool, and like I and even the weird tentacle monster that was trying to eat them.
Yeah, I thought that. I think out of all the things in the trailer, that was kind of, my favorite moment.
What? The Kessel Run?
No, the tentacle monster. I thought that was actually pretty cool because it's just like you don't really get a lot of like those kind of scary monster types in Star Wars, other than. The name is drawing a blank.
What, Jabba? Or?
No.
Sarlacc pit?
Yeah.
Oh,
other than the Sarlacc pit, but even then, it's like that's all mouth. That's what she said.
Well, it depends what cut you're talking about, because in the newer, right?
the digitally enhanced versions.
Yeah, where it's actually a.
But then this time you kind of got to, see like how like big the kind of monster is, which was really cool. So I mean, let's talk about some of the characters. What did you guys think of the Crimson Dawn, who was the main kind of antagonist in this movie?
Well, the Crimson Dawn, I kind of look at it in the same breath as the crime syndicate that was. I guess this is jumping ahead again, that Darth Maul created back in the Star Wars Clone Wars cartoon, where it seemed like this was the early stages of it. They just changed the name of the crime syndicate, but it did well to establish the sort of seedy underbelly of the universe that they kind of touched upon in The Last Jedi. They just didn't do very well in The Last Jedi, but like it makes sense that you have all these smugglers and war profiteers and just like the scum of the universe running around behind the scenes playing the different sides and essentially funding the Empire while also in part funding the rebellion. Yeah. But so like that was all cool, and just seeing what ultimately happened with Kira's character. But
super interesting.
Like that was one of the plot points from like, that's interesting. You could definitely flesh that out more in subsequent movies.
And I think Paul Bettany did a really great job as the villain there, because he was very, just from the villains that we're kind of used to in the Star Wars universe, he was very much more like kind of grounded and relatable. Like depending on where you are, you'd kind of see that guy here every day in like life and stuff, where you don't really see like
I see him every day. No, I go to Square One, I see him. Bus stop, there he is, right?
Yeah, well, the first time you see him, he's viciously murdering like a politician. Like that seems kind of what crime lords do.
By the way, if you haven't voted already, Ontario election.
It was interesting. Like because I still have such a vision of him as, no pun intended, the Vision. It was kind of cool to see him play a different kind of character, but I also weirdly wanted to see what Michael K. Williams' depiction of Dryden Voss would have been like, because apparently he was supposed to be this half lion, half alien, manticore looking thing that would have been heavily CGI that his character was going to be. So for, I guess, Paul Bettany to be a bit more grounded and human looking, because I think they established that he wasn't quite a human. Like it was still very, very cool, and I really enjoyed the character, but it's one of those what if sort of situations for me.
I like this little that like knife lightsaber thing you had.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you don't, obviously you don't have any mention of the Jedi or the Force and everything here. So that's still, that weapon was still kind of a nice little nod to what people would expect later on. So in terms of origin, obviously this is an origin story, which it did actually,